Hi guys, welcome back to my channel PMP with you. In today's video, I'm going to stick to the same video series we started last week, which is the PMP exam content outline. So last week we discussed about business environment segment, which is 8% in your exam. In today's video, I'm going to discuss about the people quadrant, which is the very first bullet point in the content outline, and also weight about 42% in your exam. So this video is a must watch. Don't miss anything. If you have any clarification, any doubts, please comment below. I'll try to answer at my best, and I'll try to find all the answers if I don't know in my capacity. Before I move to the video, I should thank you, every one of you, for watching my last video. This screen clearly shows the amount of views has increased. This reflects the love that you have shown towards my channel. Thank you very much, and I feel glad that I'm making some kind of impact towards the PEP exam takers. I'm glad that it is positively impacting on you, and I wish you all the best towards your exam. Prepare well. This is not an exam you can take easily. So this is end of the day all your hard work. So my intention is to support you as much as I can. All the best guys. Without further ado, let's move to the video. So guys, in my last video, I received a question from one of the viewers asking the difference between the domain and the task. So according to PMI, a domain is defined as a high-level knowledge area that is essential to practice of project management. And on the other hand, task is the underlying responsibility of the project manager within each domain area. So I hope you get the clear meaning. PMI has given straightforward this meaning on the content outline, right? So let's move forward to people's quadrant. As I mentioned, that is 42% of your exam. It's a huge proportion of your exam, so you should know all about your people you manage with, you people you work with, and all stakeholders who's influencing towards your project, right? So there are 14 tasks under this particular segment, starting from manage conflicts, leading a team, support team performance, empower team members and stakeholders, ensure team members stakeholders are adequately trained, building a team, address and remove impediments, obstacles and blockers from the team, negotiate project agreements, collaborate with stakeholders, build shared understanding, engage and support virtual teams, define team ground rules, mentor relevant stakeholders, promote team performance through the application of emotional intelligence, right? So this is just a skim through. I'm going to discuss each task in detail now. But before that, as I mentioned in the previous video, don't try to remember everything word by word. Best thing to do is understand what PMI expected you know under each task. Okay, so when you come to a project, make sure you have the practical knowledge by reading each of these tasks, whether you can tackle a situation arise. So this is the area that PMI can create many situation judgment questions for you, because people always brings you trouble, brings you problems. So make sure that you understand each task thoroughly, so you can tackle any of the scenarios they could come up with. Okay, so without further ado, let's start with the very first one, task one, that is manage conflict. Interpret the source and stage of the conflict, analyze the context of the conflict, evaluate, recommend or reconcile the appropriate conflict resolution solution. Okay, so in here what it means is, if there's a conflict occurs, you need to understand what is the conflict, you need to understand where this has been generated, and then you need to analyze the conflict, the context of it, and then you need to evaluate, you need to come up with a recommendation to handle that particular conflict. Okay, you need to come up with solutions. As the project manager, you need to propose, you need to give solutions to your team, to your project, overcome this conflict. So that's all about the task one. Make sure you understand it, not remembering it. Task two is lead a team. Set a clear vision and mission, support diversity and inclusion, behavior types, thought processes, value servant leadership. Determine an appropriate leadership style. Inspire, motivate, and influence team members, stakeholders. Analyze team members and stakeholder influences. Distinguish various options to lead various team members and stakeholders. So, leading a team, you need to make sure that you set up a clear vision and a mission for your team to follow. Otherwise, they will just do whatever they want. That's not the case. You should navigate your team by giving them a clear vision and a mission. And then you need to make sure you support the diversity and inclusion. Sometimes people would come in different social background, different cultural backgrounds. So you need to make sure that you support the diversity, make sure that you accommodate all the behavior types. Certainly you need to have ground rules, but you need to make sure that you accommodate whenever it's necessary to attend those. And you also need to make sure that the understanding of the individual is different, so you need to make sure that you attend them accordingly. And then you need to value the servant leadership. You need to make sure that you provide an environment for your subordinates, for your team, where they get all the resources from your end without any lack of it, because that really matters end of the day for the performance of them and of your project as well. And then determine appropriate leadership style. You need to make sure that whether you are following a directive leadership where you command your team to do such work, or you practice a collaborative leadership, a platform where you discuss with your team and have a more discussion environment rather than directing them towards the goals. So you need to make sure that you set it very clear so your team can understand you as a leader, whether you are following a directive or a collaborative leadership style. And then you need to make sure you inspire them, motivate them, and influence your team, because end of the day that really matters. You need to make sure that you have a proper reward system to make sure that everybody is treated equally, is measured under a system where they can get rewarded if they perform well. And then analyze team members and stakeholders' influence. You need to make sure that it's different person to person. You need to make sure that their influence different person to person. You need to make sure that the influence is taken positively towards your project. Task number 3 is support team performance. Appraise team members' performance against key performance indicators. Support and recognize them team member growth and development. Determine appropriate feedback approach. Verify performance improvements. Right. The main thing here is you need to have a very see-through, very transparent performance indicators where the entire team can perform equally. Equal in the sense the benchmark that we have set up has to be achievable, has to motivate the staff to drive themselves towards those goals. And you need to make sure you have a proper communication with your staff, get their feedback when you set up the benchmarks or the standards of those targets. And also when they lack in performance, it's always good to have a discussion with them to find out where they are lacking at. You need to come up with solutions to verify performance, and you need to come up with proposals where you are able to improve their performance. So that's all about support team performance. And then task number 4 is empower team members and stakeholders. Organize around team strengths, support team task accountability, evaluate, demonstrate of task accountability, determine and bestow levels of decision-making authority. So this is all about delegation. You need to make sure that you identify all the strengths in your team and also at the same time the weaknesses. All right. You need to make sure that if a team member is very good at analytics, you need to make sure that he is given that task and he's the person to reach, and he should be valued on that. So likewise, you need to identify the strengths of your team members and make sure that you delegate the task accordingly depending on their strengths. Then only you can get the maximum out of them, and they will also contribute at their maximum towards the success of your team goals. Furthermore, they will be more accountable because they know their strengths has been identified and they are given a task where they are good at. So they will be more accountable towards the success of the given task. Task number 5 is ensuring team members, stakeholders are adequately trained. Determine required competencies of elements of training. Determine training options based on training needs. Allocate resources for training. Measure training outcomes. Guys, this is very important factor because even though people are educated in subjects, when it comes to working environment, sometimes they might have to get the appropriate training on the job. So you need to make sure you have a training system, even though you hire the best experienced staff from the market. You need to make sure you give them ample of training, enough of training where they can perform towards your company, towards your organization. At the end of the day, they have to adapt towards your system, towards how you work within that organization, how you work within that project. So make sure that you give that training towards your staff. And you also need to make sure you allocate appropriate and enough resources to for those training facilities. And you also need to have a system where you can measure training system where outcomes definitely need to be measured. Otherwise, you will not have a benchmark whether that staff is trained or not. Task number 6 is building a team. Appraise stakeholder skills. Reduce project resource requirements. Continuously assess and refresh team skills to meet project needs. Maintain team and knowledge transfer. So building a team is very challenging. So you need to make sure you appraise stakeholder skills. You need to make sure you appraise your teammates' skills and reduce project resource requirements and continuously assess them, because you can't just put them on work and let them do anything. No, you have to continuously monitor them. You have to provide necessary skills whenever it is needed, and you need to maintain a knowledge transferring system where if one staff is good at something, you need to make sure a cross training process where other staff can learn from that staff. So you need to make sure that knowledge is transferred among your team members, which will be a good practice to gain faith within each other and also build a perfect team. It will act as a very good team building activity. Task number 7, address and remove impediments, obstacles and blockers for your team. So determining these obstacles is important, and then prioritize the critical ones, and then you should have solution to remove these obstacles from your team so they can perform well in their day-to-day work. And also you need to reassess, ensure these obstacles are not arise again and again throughout the project. Okay. And then task number 8 is negotiate project agreements. So agreements, obviously you dealing with people, you need to make sure that you negotiate for the best agreement, and then you need to make sure that you determine the ultimate objectives, verify the objectives and of the project agreements is made, and participate in agreement negotiation. So negotiation is a key soft skill that PM should carry. And then determine the negotiation strategy, also very important when it comes to negotiations. There are different strategies are being used, so you need to make sure you follow the best strategy for that particular negotiation process. And then task number 9 is collaborate with stakeholders. Evaluate engagement needs for stakeholders. Optimize alignment between stakeholder needs, expectations and project objectives. Build trust and influence stakeholders to accomplish project objectives. Right. So this is all about creating a collaborative environment for the stakeholders so they can work freely, they can engage freely, they can work towards the success of your project. And then the task number 10 is build shared understanding. Break down a situation to identify the root cause of the misunderstanding. Surely all necessary parties to reach consequence. Support outcomes of parties' agreement. Investigate potential misunderstandings. So this is all about creating understanding among your team and avoid all the misunderstandings. Whenever a misunderstanding occurred, you need to make sure you take relevant action without doing it further. to make it more worse towards your team. And then task number 11, engage and support virtual teams. So in the current situation, virtual teams are very popular in the corporate world. So you need to make sure that you examine the virtual team member needs, because environment, geographically, culturally, globally, these needs could be very different from each other. So you need to make sure you allocate necessary needs to that particular virtual team member. You also need to investigate alternatives. Sometimes some needs could be very expensive, could not be handled from your project. So you need to find out alternatives, such as communication tools, co-location options, etc. And then implement options of virtual team member engagement. So you need to make sure the virtual team member is engaged at any given time, because that is the key to success end of the day. Continually evaluate the effectiveness of the virtual team members engagement. So you need to make room for the engagement, and you also need to measure that engagement is effectively happening. All right, so you need to have a measurement of the virtual team member, make sure that engagement is there at any given time. Task number 12 is define team ground rules. Communicate organizational principles with the team and external stakeholders. Establish an environment for foster adherence to ground rules. Manage and rectify ground rule violations. Okay, so ground rules are very important when it comes to a team management in any organization, in any project. So you need to make sure you set up relevant ground rules, and you also communicate to your team and make sure either they sign off, either they understanding and come to agreement with those ground rules at the first point before you start doing anything. That is very important in any project. Task number 13, mentor relevant stakeholders. Allocate timing to mentoring, recognize, act on mentoring opportunities. Sometimes people need more attention, people need more guidance. So make sure you understand them and make sure you accommodate that guidance to that stakeholders or that team member that seeks it. Task number 14, the last one, promote team performance through the application of emotional intelligence. This is a little tricky. Assess behavior through the use of personal indicators, analyze personality indicators, and adjust to emotional needs of the key project stakeholders. So as though this is a little tricky, you need to understand the emotional part of it when it comes to dealing with people. So you need to make sure you promote the team performance through that emotional intelligence. You manage it perfectly well without impacting their status or the emotional status. Okay, so guys, this is all about all 14 tasks. Repeating once again, make sure you don't try to remember word by word every task, but you understand every task, because understanding is important when it comes to answering situational judgment questions in the exam, because exam can create many scenarios. As you can see, when it comes to people, there are n number of scenarios they can come up with. Specifically given this situation, we can focus more towards the virtual team that we discussed, the task number 11, because that could be very popular these days, because we have to deal with virtual teams in the given scenario with the COVID pandemic situation. So there could be more weight towards that, but things like emotional intelligence, mentorship, and training are always there in the exam. So you can expect questions come on these areas very frequently. Okay, so and also sometimes the conflict management could be very tricky, because it could affect many of the other tasks. As you can see, like when it comes to conflict, it could impact on the performance, it could impact on the emotional intelligence, it could impact on could happen on a virtual team. So this managing conflict could go in many ways. So you need to understand them thoroughly rather than remembering them, because if you remember word by word, it won't help to answer questions. But if you understand them thoroughly, it will definitely help you when it comes to situation judgment questions, since you know what is in the background, what is behind, you'll be easily eliminating the unwanted answers, the wrong answers, and end up with the correct answer during the exam. So all the best, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you learned a lot in this video. In the next video, we can talk about the next quadrant, which is the process, which is the biggest exam content, that is 50% of the exam. So don't miss that video. Make sure you subscribe to my channel and click that bell icon so you will not miss that video. And if you like the content, make sure you give a thumbs up and share with your friends so they also know about these videos and they also can get prepared with PMP exam. So all the best. Once again, comment below if you have any questions, if you have any gray areas, and try to come up with a video covering that particular subject or particular topic. Thank you. All the very best, guys.